Hey there, everybody. How are you doing this evening? Welcome to the first Las Vegas Summer League stream. I'm PD Webb, and I am joined by a stacked cast of people ready to talk about a wide variety of prospects from, you know, I think we're going to go from first overall to undrafted guys during the next couple of days to potentially like week and a half of streams. And I would like to start by asking our panel to introduce themselves and answer with the question of how do you evaluate a venue like Summer League? So one at a time, guys. Introduce yourself. Let them know who you have, and let them know what your approach about Summer League is.
Well, I guess I'm starting. Ignacio Rissotto here. I've been in multiple BD Web streams, so I don't think I need to introduce myself anymore. But yeah, I'm going to talk about Alperen Sengun today and his performance at Summer League. And I really don't, I don't want to say I don't put any stock in Summer League, but I mostly take it as something where I see if the certain tendencies that the player had coming into the league translate or not against competition that's going to be closer to NBA level than what they come from. I'm guessing that in the future we might not have those translation issues when it comes to players coming straight from the G League, because I would say that the maybe the players on the G League and the players on the Summer League are on a comparable, strength, so to speak. But it happens with players that come from, the NCAA or lesser leagues around the world. It's nice to get finally a look at them against NBA level or NBA-ish level competition. So that's pretty much my biggest takeaway from Summer League. For year one players, for year two players, or year three players, especially if they are not really dominating Summer League or getting pulled after 2 or 3 games because they were just so much better than everyone else, then that's maybe a cause of concern. But for year one guys, to me, it's just limited to a first look against NBA level competition.
Okay, hi. I'm James. I'm the annoying guy who's been standing the league monk for like 18 months now or something. So, but yeah. And I thought Ignacio, that was a pretty interesting point because like I don't know, like it's still basketball to me. So like I still like put a good amount of stock into it. I guess like just because like he brings up second year players that if they don't dominate, he's lower on, I guess. But like for me, like, because I watch a lot of the Kings Summer League, and like Ja Ramsey, like he, like his the stuff that he does that doesn't work at NBA level, it doesn't work at Summer League level either. So I guess like in one way, it's just like how like below the thresholds he is in skills like ball handling or self creation, but also like he still did a lot of stuff that you can see just like if he's playing off De'Aaron Fox, like he's going to be able to do that. But yeah, so like I guess I put a good amount of stock into it. I guess like I try to like tell myself like what the relative talent deficits in some league are. Like of course there's an overall like talent deficit relative to the NBA, but if it was like, for example, like good drop coverage bigs are probably like Emmanuel Terry on the Kings Summer League team, he was basically just dominating guys in the paint, and he's like an undersized center. So like yeah, just like trying to be aware of like where the talent deficits are in some league. But yeah, ultimately it's still good reps. Like the Kings, not the Kings, the Wolves Spurs Summer League game, it had like Devin Vassell and Jaden McDaniel was like locking up on defense. So like, and you're not gonna get that much better than that like point of attack defense in the NBA. But anyway, yeah. So that's my take.
Next up.
Yeah. Hi. I'm Bryce. I Summer League for me is mostly about scouting.
You gotta give me a better intro than that. Come on. Like, some people might not be familiar. We could do the whole thing. This is just
I'm Bryce Hendricks. I write for Roll Call, and I host the Upside Swings Draft podcast. I tweet a lot of draft stuff all the time. Probably too much, to be honest. But
10 out of 10. Great intro.
There you go.
That's a professional intro,
Summer
folks.
League. Oh yeah, I got to put that on the resume. But Summer League for me is like, it's mostly for scouting kind of back end roster guys, right? Like I'm mostly out there looking for the Paul Wrights and Paul Whites, excuse me, and the Jarrell Brantleys of the world. But for guys like top draft picks, I want to see. I just want to see them kind of do what they do. You know, understand that Summer League, like James mentioned, has specific types of players who are going to excel. You know, guys who can excel without a scheme, who are really good at attacking weaknesses in another team's like defense, because there's just not a lot of good defensive scheme out there. Specifically guards. I mean, there's a reason we see so many guards. Like Antonio Blakeney was like one of the most efficient players in Summer League. It's because he's the type of player that's just going to excel in the Summer League setting. But for guys like like a Paul White, or I'm talking about Kessler Edwards later, I'm sort of looking for, can they move without the ball, even though there's not a scheme for them to move around? They're not schemed cuts. They're not schemed movement threes. Are they still moving? Are they still seeing the floor? Things like that I like to look for at Summer League a lot. And then, yeah, I'm with Ignacio that second year players, you really want to see them dominate, because if not, especially like top picks, second year players, if not, then you start to get a little worried. But yeah, that's Summer League.
Okay, I guess I'm last. So my name is Xavier Green, or as you guys probably know me, Not Zay, or Not Zay22 on Instagram. I'm tripping, Instagram, Twitter. So basically what I get from Summer League is, it really depends prospect by prospect, and it depends on the deficiency. So like, let's just say, for example, in college, their deficiency was, okay, they can't pass against length, or they can't finish against length, or whatnot. And they might not be in a conference that puts them in these compromising situations that often, so they look awesome. So like, if it's a guy who struggles with those things and then they come to Summer League and they continue to struggle, that's when I kind of raise an eyebrow to them a little bit. I kind of, hold on. With year two, I agree with Ignacio about year 2 and 3 players, unless it's like Cole Anthony, because that doesn't fit my agenda, of course. But I feel like those guys should look better. If they're guys, for the most part, I feel like they should look better, head and shoulders above pretty much everyone else, for the most part. And I don't value Summer League all that much, because you're not going to get that much from 3 to 4 games, to be completely honest with you. And I feel like it's usually, I forgot who said this. I believe it was it Cole? I don't know. Someone said that it's basically confirmation bias, where it's just like everyone's going to excuse their favorite prospect if they aren't playing well because it's just Summer League. I did it this year. But if they have a Summer League, like let's say Jalen Green or Suggs or something like that, they're the next GOAT. Jake Luce also made a fine point about team defense in Summer League as well, because it's not very good per se. And scorers like a Jalen Green or a guy like Sharif, for example, those kind of guys are going to eat in the Summer League setting. It's just that you kind of have to understand. Okay. Just kind of have to learn how to understand what you're watching. And then same thing that James said, I watch for back end guys. A guy that I liked watching this Summer League was Jeff Dowden. He was on my Summer League team. He was on the Warriors in Sacramento. So that was that's pretty much all I had to say.
Shout out to the car alarm that was going for the last 5 minutes that have kept me from talking and really burdening you guys with that. I think for me, the important thing with Summer League is understanding what players are being asked to do. Back and bench guys are just trying to prove that they can play a role. Returning guys are being asked to define their skills, and often rookies are exploring the studio space. And so if you have an older guy who's exploring the studio space and kind of doing whatever they want to, there's there's probably some problems. Or if you have a guy who's just trying to earn a back end spot and they're playing a role that's not theirs, I think that's important to contextualize. And that's kind of what I try to do with Summer League. It's not taking it a case by case basis, but understand that everybody comes into Summer League with instructions and everyone's there for a purpose, and evaluating through that lens, whether it's through reading coach interviews or attending media sessions or whatever it may be. But that everybody is here for a specific reason, and that is the most important thing that you can really glean. So with that being said, let's jump over to film. Here is our wonderful group. And first up, we have Ignacio talking about the one of the most divisive prospects in this draft. Is that fair to say?
I would say so. I've seen the flame wars on Twitter. So if that's not divisiveness, then I don't know what it is. But yeah, so I'm here to talk about Alperen Sengun. I chose the game against Orlando. I didn't choose the game against the Pistons because I think, in the same vein that it's not fair to choose any other of his two other games against the Caps or the Raptors, where he shot 30% from the field, I think it's not fair, or it's not representative of an average game, to choose a game where he put up 21, 8, and 4 with 21 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 blocks. And I also wanted to see him against this particular set of bigs in Orlando, because he played against 7'1" John Teskey, and he played against Jante Maiden, which not a super tall player, but he's 240 pounds. So I wanted to see him against two players that were going to resemble more of the type of bigs that he's going to actually play against at the NBA level. So I, like always, we have 5 points that I want y'all to track down while I go over Sengun's tape.
Do you mind if I jump in real quick, because this is a little bit different?
Sure.
This is a little bit different than normally. So we just talk about evaluation points, the general idea, and because Summer League is such a small sample size, I think taking broad conclusions away from a guy struggling at the rim or whatever. I think it's actually better to just look at the microist stuff. And so for me, this is what I asked people to, what I asked our guests to do was to look at the things coming into Summer League that you were paying the most attention to, and then seeing how that played out in this particular game. So rather than saying this is scoring versus NBA fives, it's, a thing that he's going to do well or poorly. It's just this is the list of the 5 most important attention points. A little bit different than how I've done it. I felt like I should explain the overall change, but Ignacio, I'll let you get back to it.
Yeah, no, 100%, because like we said, and I would be contradicting myself if I were to take many conclusions out of 4 games of Summer League on these points. But yeah, so coming into the season, and I did a whole thread on Twitter about my final ideas on each player, and for Sengun were this 5 pretty much. The biggest question for him is, how is he going to be able to make tough shots in the paint against NBA size centers? To me, that's the difference between him translating just as a pick and pop big, or as a true 2-level scoring big. Then the stationary passing vision. Sengun lovers are going to tell you that he's Nikola Jokic. He's not, but he does show flashes of vision, and that's something that I really want to track down to see how much he can contribute to an offense in terms of playmaking. Then the shooting flashes versus the shooting volume. Sengun, I don't have the number right here, but I think he had something like 0.08 3-point attempt rate. So that means that for every 100 field goals, only 8 of them were 3-pointers in the Turkish league, and generally volume is a good indicator for shooting. But I do think that Sengun is going to shoot just because of the flashes of touch and also versatility as a shooter, although on a limited sample size. Then overcoming tools defensively. I personally feel that some of the concerns in terms of defense were a bit overblown, or at least that's how I felt coming into the NBA Summer League. And I think he can, overcome some of them with right positioning and motor. But there's a limit to that. And finally, number 5, and this is something that I saw at Summer League, and going back, I had the chance to look at it, is making things easy for himself and the team making things easy for him. He was in a situation in Turkey where they needed him to do pretty much, I don't want to say everything offensively, but, carry a huge load offensively. And that was, making tough shots, making, the tough plays. And at the NBA, I think if he continues with that path of, having to do all the hard type of stuff, I don't think it's the best for him. And I think, there should be moments where he rolls to the rim, where he runs in transition, where he takes those open shots that I don't think he's accustomed to, just because of the context that he came from in Turkey.
I mean, yeah, this to me was the most exciting translation, and I'm excited to get into what we saw. Again,
That's
everything's here is going to be seen twice. So, if you guys don't catch it the first time, it will come around again if this is your first Let's Watch film.
So in the first play, we're going to see that Sengun operated a lot from the outside in this game, catching the ball outside the three-point line and getting to the rim. He didn't get as many paint touches. So he's going to set a screen here. He's going to pump fake against Teskey, and he's going to be pretty effective at getting him off balance, but the help comes from the strong side corner. He misses a read to the corner, which is, something that passing on the move is not one of his strengths at the moment, but he's still able to pick up his dribble, keep the ball, and get to the foul line, which he has been doing historically at a good rate. Here, he's going to attack off the dribble, and Teskey is going to come up with a jump ball. I think this is enough space for him to shoot, and I don't understand why you're, trying to take a player off the dribble when you don't have the explosiveness or the quickness to do so. I understand that Summer League is kind of a lab and players have to try new stuff, but this isn't really the type of play that I would like to see from Sengun repeatedly at the NBA level. And here also, he could shoot over the smaller player, but he chooses to take him to the rim. He's going to get a few consecutive offensive rebounds, and he's going to miss some of them. He's going to end up getting called for a foul. I think if we can return the play, it would be awesome. I don't know if it's going to repeat, but what I see here is that one of the things that I saw from him coming into the season, and I talked about this, was that he needs to make those tough shots. Because I think a great part of his offense, and if you want to justify him as a top 10 or top 5 pick, as some people had him, you need him to be like an elite level player finishing tough shots at the rim. And these are tough shots. These are easier shots. These are shots that he should finish at his size against a mismatch. And he didn't really have a good summer league in terms of numbers at the restricted area, only 48%. We're gonna, yeah. Yeah, sure.
All right.
Okay.
Let me rewind that back for you, real fast, and we can jump back.
I think it was 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just missed
we're good
the
then.
DHO keep. No, this is the.
It's in the next play. It's the next. So we're gonna see some of the passing vision here. He tried to thread it through the player's legs. They could have called this a kick ball, and he turns it over. I love the vision. I love the read here. Even though he doesn't connect with the player, these are the type of turnovers that I want to see my young player get. The place where he has some of those advanced reads and tries to make them and ends up turning it over. Of course, that he will need to improve in his touch as a passer to not turn the ball over in those reads. But I thought that was an awesome read. And then he's going to take the offensive rebound. The play's going to develop. And I think he should have shot there. But, passes the shot. And then he's going to make a beautiful read when Christopher makes a 45 cut and gets the ball to him. And Christopher, I think, gets called for foul.
I have a quick question. What do you make of so many players biting on his pump fake? Like in almost every clip we've seen, we see people rising out of stances, and it wasn't just this game. I mean, it definitely expressed itself live. What is it like? People believe he can shoot.
Yes.
I don't know if that's just a virtue of him being like a European dude. It's just that it's
a
natural assumption.
I think so.
So do you think that level of gravity will translate at all to the league, or is this just like a summer league thing when people really haven't seen it before?
In order for it to translate, I think, so obviously the scouting reports at the beginning of the season are going to say, don't bite his pump fake because of, he is hesitant to shoot. He doesn't shoot at a great volume and he loves to pump fake and go. So, if players read the scouting report, they're not going to fall so much for his pump fake. It's going to be on him to make those shots, to make players respect him in order to, actually get them to bite on the pump fake again and then take advantage of those advantages he creates. But yeah, I think in Summer League it's because of a lack of just scouting reports and from just the stereotype of being European. And if they see an European big, they think that he'll be able to shoot. So we're seeing that play again. So yeah, I wanted to highlight those two reads. He misses on the first read. I think beyond the shot that he should have taken, he reads Christopher coming out well and getting open. But he misses a teammate on the weak side that was even more wide open than Christopher. And then the pass on the 45 cut, again, to me, that's an advanced vision for someone at his age and on his role. And even though the pass almost got big, I'm happy that he throws those passes. I'm happy that he attempts those plays outside of his comfort zone. I just want to see how much, the execution of those plays ends up being against NBA level defenders. And if he can polish those things to make those perfect deliveries, and then that how much of that contributes to, the offense of a team. No, so let's go to the shot. We saw it on the previous play, and we see it here. He's wide open here. He's completely wide open. He needs to shoot that ball. This is fourth quarter. They're down 14 with 4 minutes to go. There's an ocean between him and his closest defender. He needs to shoot those shots, especially considering that he shot 3 out of 8, which is 37.5% in Summer League. And, the shot to me, I think with the touch, like I said, touch and flashes of versatility, he's going to become a good shooter. Here, he should have shot it on rhythm. He shoots it off rhythm. He sizes up his defender a bit and ends up draining the shot. The upper body mechanics are what they are. He shoots like a big man. He brings the ball all the way back. At least he seems well aligned with the rim. I'm concerned with the lower body, especially kicking his right leg forward. I don't think you can get enough balance there, and especially it's going to affect how you aim left to right. We're going to see the other three-point shot that he had here, which was a miss. And he does the same. He kicks the right leg forwards. I don't think you're going to be able to, have a repeatable enough form, and you're not going to be able to keep your balance as a shooter. But he does have the touch, and I think that's one of the keys. And I don't expect him to, make those shots off the dribble that we saw in some of the highlights from the Turkish league. But I do think that the touch can translate well for him to become a pick and pop threat. Like I said, he didn't have many shots in the paint in this game. Here he gets shut down by 6'7" Jante Maiden. Obviously, 240 pounds is a player that's difficult to move, but at the same time, he's going to face those type of players and bigger players at the NBA level. So a lot of tough shooting that he did in Turkey against Turkish league centers, I don't think he's going to be able to do at the NBA level. And this is what I meant by making things easy for him. Here he perfectly, after his team gets the offensive rebound, you see him run the floor fluidly, waiting for a pass. And I want him to do this sort of things. And I think playing with Jalen Green, who has a really good speed in the open court, playing with John Wall, I think this is a team that's going to run a lot. And I hope that this sort of off-ball offense, rim running, ends up being a good part of the offense for Alperen, because he's going to need those easy shots to contribute to the team. We're going to get into the defense with 3 plays here. Here he takes the middle lane and he contests the shot for himself pretty well. We're going to see it here. His teammate looks him off and just chucks the shot because it's summer league, so why not? And then the whole team's going to go back in transition. He takes the middle lane, turns his hips, does a pretty good job of getting ready and contesting and maintaining verticality and not fouling and contesting with his chest. I think that's the best case scenario for him as a rim protector. And here we're going to see a few pick and roll plays. The first one, I like how he presents himself high. He doesn't drop in coverage. Houston's not going to switch the screen. I don't know what they're going to do in the season. To me, they would be better on a switch scheme. On a scheme where Sengun just buys enough time for the guard to go back to the ball. So I like the presentation and the high and being able to, being willing to contest. But at the same time, he stayed too upright, and I think Cole could have driven by him and just didn't.
So I will say a thing that jumps out to me on, especially when he's guarding like what I would say are like non-NBA guys, is that he's ultra aggressive at point of attack. And like he's stunting at people, and like in a lot of ways he's doing things that like Jonathan Isaac can do. And I just think that like a lot of his technique on ball is predicated on trying to put pressure on the ball handler. And at an NBA level, it's just like, that's going to get you hurt. That's going to get your feelings hurt. And I'm really curious to see like this is what happens with young bigs. It's like, oh, I used to be able to do this all the time. Now I can no longer do that. I'm curious to see what his backup plan is when pressure itself doesn't work. Because like, again, every big has that moment where like you get this stuff right here where it's, big hands. Again, he's trying to reach, he's trying to clean. Like it works fine. If you do that against somebody else, you can have a problem. What is his backup plan if that doesn't work? What is his non-pressure option? That I'm really curious about. Yeah.
That's an excellent point, and I think here he like you said, he's pretty aggressive against Giannis' Tima. Giannis tries to probe there, and he's able to shut it down. And I like him staying low, his center of gravity, and I think Summer League is a good place to like throw prospects into the fire and see what they can do on islands defensively. But again, who knows how it will work against the NBA. And here to me, this play is not so much about his sun ball defense, like when Maiden ends up getting the ball, but him just sagging off of Maiden, who is one pass away. Like, you have to be ready to either contest that shot, or if he's going to take it to the rack, you have to be on a stance. And he was just sagging off and just chilling out, and yeah, of course, Maiden, as soon as he gets the ball, he attacks that closeout, and he's not able to recover, not in terms of physicality and not in terms of quickness. And those off ball, to me, like I said, the off ball positioning to me is one of the keys for him to not be a negative defensively. And I think that positioning at the rim is pretty solid from what I saw in Europe, but that positioning off ball in the perimeter is something that he still needs to develop.
I think that's at times maybe too kind. Throw it to the gallery who, I see decided to stay out of this one. Thoughts on, what Ignacio has presented, and just like thoughts on the Alperen Sengun Summer League experience. Anybody have a particular height, wager they would like to put down? There's a lot of unknowns that we kind of got a little more hints about. So general thoughts, guys?
Okay, so I'm not Bryce.
Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, like, I was really, really impressed by his just straight up tankness to get to the line. Sometimes with those European guys, you expect them to come over and try and just out finesse guys. And it's nice to see him use what he has to get to the line a lot. I think that's going to be a real path to him being an efficient NBA player, is through just getting to the line a lot, being a good free throw shooter. So I that was like the most promising thing. I think that's something that is obviously a bit more exaggerated by the jumpy summer league defenders. But I don't know. I guess, like, do you guys think that's something that translates pretty well to the NBA game once he sort of gets acclimated, or do you think that was more aberrational?
To me, it's a matter of, and you touch on European prospects. I think Sengun was in a pretty unique setting where he was the main guy on his team, on a professional team, on the first league of Turkey. And we can get on how good the Turkish league was this year, but he was the main guy. And when you see other players that come from Europe, at times they are taught to, okay, you are the fifth guy offensively, and you get, the scraps. And that was not the case with Sengun. And I think, having worked on that on his previous year before getting into the NBA, and having worked on getting into the line and carry his, the scoring load of the team, is what makes him more aggressive and more, okay, I'm going to get mine and I'm going to get to the line. I think that experience of being the guy at any level, but especially at the professional level, is huge for, translating those type of things.
Yeah. And Zay, you have any particular thoughts, given that I know you watched quite a bit of this team?
Hello. Okay. So I don't really have that much to say about Sengun. Like, surprisingly, the thing that as soon as you asked the question, the thing that I sort of went to immediately was what Bryce kind of pointed at when he said it was the physicality and foul drawing ability that really stood out to me. Everything else was more or less kind of, at least was what I expected from him. The defense was something that I put a little bit of emphasis on, because he's going to be playing against NBA ball handlers and athletes now in the summer league. That's one of those things where I thought it was case by case, like, okay, they might struggle against this. And I think that, okay, it still wasn't great, but it was better than what I thought it would be, is something that I would say with Sengun. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Bryce pretty much took the point that I had about the physicality and foul drawing, and the importance that will have on his career moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the things that jumped out to me, obviously, watching things in person and then doubling back over makes for a really unique experience, because you think things are kind of one way and then they show up a little bit different on tape. I would say that, like, he was a lot smaller than I was told. And he didn't, the physicality didn't seem to overwhelm him, like with a lot of guys who are like, sort of his general archetype. Like they just face dudes who, run and jump like Greg Brown. It's like, okay, I don't have a response for this. I didn't think that was the issue. It's that like he was fine with the physicality. Or the physicality and athleticism. My thing was that I think that he needs to get dramatically more athletic to succeed in his play style. Especially if he's going to pump fake open jumpers. I think that the relative athleticism was fairly impressive. Like the differential wasn't like, a big deal. But there's just times where it's like this play needs to be a dunk, or like he's getting fouled a lot, and it's kind of there were times where I thought he got fouled because he had missed a layup previously, and the next time the guy just hit him. There's only so many times you can protect the rim without fouling. Overall, I think Sengun's summer league would say very positive with like. I think the caveats you would expect, but also like this is a very illuminating experience. Having a Turkish league that has varying, like it is obviously different than the Turkish league of years prior. Having a teenage MVP and then dropping them into like a summer league that was also very different than many other summer leagues. So a fascinating year. Any final thoughts on Sengun before we head over?
Yeah. It's not a really tangible point or anything, but like, just what it was fun as, nearly swore there. It was very fun to, like him pump faking, taking people off the dribble from the top of the key. Like there's this clip of Jacob, going crazy basically as he did like behind the back and spin move. I guess it's probably not going to translate because I look at like, I know most draft people don't love play comps, but some of those moves reminded me a bit of Larry Markkinen, and Larry Markkinen's like his name sticks in my head a lot because I saw him drop 35 on PJ Washington, and it was pretty much single coverage top of the key. I'm just wondering like, how is this guy like someone Bulls fans hate, but aren't the biggest fans of? But I guess it just shows how like insanely high the threshold for ball handling is in like non very big spaces. So like I guess the fact that he's so comfortable to handle, it's good. It's going to translate to like short roll stuff, one dribble, touch shot. But yeah, like I hope Silas is quite. Like it's going to be hard for Silas to balance that crazy young roster, but I want to see like Sengun pump fake, dribble, draw the nail help, kick out to Jalen Green who bursts through the gap and put someone on a poster. That's the one play I want to see from the Rockets next season.
Okay. I've spent enough time with this document that I do remember who is up next. I
think it's me. I was hoping to get a response there to buy some time because I'm nervous. But anyway, yeah.
So, tell me about the areas that you're paying attention to with Davion Mitchell.
Okay, so yeah, like he's very small. He's like, I don't know, like 6'1", 6'2" or something. Like so I think the first things that stood out to me watching him was like I like generally the tools he has for pick and roll, but he's really small and his vision, and that affects his vision a lot. Like his worst pick and roll play was against like catch edge coverages or aggressive drops where like like he's not like he needs to do some extra stuff compared to like against a hedge like a Luka Doncic, a pocket pass is viable, or just slipping it over like a sling pass over the top. But like for Davion, he doesn't have that pass from the same position. So he's got to do some extra stuff if he wants to like unlock stuff like interior reads. Otherwise, all he's going to be doing is like kind of like half, what I call like half advantage passes. It's kind of like that was which that's the thing. I think that's kind of like what you think, what you say like Meladon does. It's what I saw Halliburton do a lot. It's just like not really. It's like not really putting a whole lot of pressure on the defense. His pick and roll, like his when he makes a cross court pass, it doesn't put a shit ton of, it doesn't put a lot of pressure on the defense. So hopefully you can edit that out. And yeah, so like I think like size is a really common theme across the whole thing. Like for defense, he plays such an aggressive, ego style. Like it kind of reminds me of PJ Tucker, just reminding to every little movement the offensive player makes. But at his size, can he do that? Especially on the Kings, where he might be the guy that Luke Walton throws at a big ball handler. And also, isolation scoring, because, it's like team switch a lot. So he's going to be able to, score in isolation, especially with how much he struggled against length in general. So, and yeah, like that ties into the margin for error off ball. He falls asleep for a split second. He's going to get back out, or like if he gets back out, he doesn't have any ways to recover because he's so small. So, yeah, I think that's the general gist of it. So I picked the Charlotte game because I thought they were probably the team that best had the most length, I guess. So that first clip, so he's off ball on Bouknight's his assignment, and he kind of, I'm not exactly sure what he was doing, but like he was gapping, I guess. But as a result, he's doing a pause that. So on that play, he ended up basically just being slightly behind, slightly out of position a little bit. And when Richards runs a handoff with Bouknight, he's a little bit out of position and kind of overeager to beat him to the spot. And then Bouknight just, fakes one way and gets the other way, and Davion's completely out of the play. So that's just an example of one, the tiny margin for error he has off ball, and just how bigger ball handlers and just like craftier NBA ball handlers in general can exploit how he plays. So like here again, it's kind of a similar thing. Kulboka gets a handoff, fakes one way, one dribble, wide open pull up jumper. If that's Jason Tatum, you're in a lot of trouble. So third play is just his lack of recovery ability, I guess. And again, just his low margin for error as a big ball handler, because it seems that Terry probably doesn't play this pick and roll coverage ideally, but Davion still, just cut and blows right by his hip, even with a bit of a strong sided dig. So, and then Davion's powerless once he gets beaten, his hip gets beaten. This play, like, just highlighting how good he's going to be with Rashawn Holmes and Bagley, pretty much, because I think his overeager style meshes really well with mobile bigs that can hedge quite well and give him that extra half second to recover, because he knows exactly what he needs to take away from the ball handler. He knows what passing angles he needs to take away. He targets the ball well. So that's basically just that clear. So that was against Kai Jones, who's, as we all know, one of the most mobile bigs we've seen in a while. And I feel like he gets a pretty good look off in isolation. He doesn't hit that shot, but when I talk about how hard it is for Davion to win, that's something I kind of like. Do you want to pause it for a little bit? So that's something like I'm curious what other people's thoughts are. Like, as an isolation scorer, how difficult is it going to be for Davion? Because he is really quick. So like that kind of, so if he sells a drive and then crosses over, he can get that. Like that's a wide open, that's a really clean look against Kai Jones, who's a phenomenal isolation defender. I guess the one thing I would say in this clip is Kai plays him like he's a threat to drive. And in Summer League, it was kind of like up and down. Like the first California Classic game against the Dubs, late game, the Dubs didn't play him as a threat to drive. They played him pretty tight. And like Kai playing a step off kind of gives Davion the airspace to get this off, I guess. And if Kai played him a bit tighter, what would have happened? Because finishing inside also is an issue for Davion. So, I guess keep going.
Anybody want to jump in on that, on the question of how he handles isolation? I mean, I have an answer, but I'd like to hear from you guys as well.
I've always thought that was going to be a huge issue for Davion, and that's the same with almost all small guards who don't have like elite shooting range, and even those guys, you know, they have to combine that with like really impressive downhill threat. It's just he is a good downhill threat, but not a great finisher, and his shooting is something I think you'll live with. Like that's a really good shot he just created against Kai, who has really bad technique but is super mobile. So like I'm happy he created that look, but that's a look you're kind of willing to live with if you're a defense, I think, unless he really proves that he's absolutely deadly from, you know, that's 22 feet probably. And I don't know if I'm a defense, if I'm shivering in my boots at that shot ever.
Zay?
Hello? Yeah, okay. So with Davion, I had more or less the same concerns as Bryce and James about the creation. Basically, what I saw on this play with him is that, like James said, Kai gave him space. So when you're when he's doing a move that's trying to create more space, it's just like it's space plus space. So of course he's gonna be able to create the separation. And like Bryce said, this is a shot that I'm willing. It's a long two. I'm willing to let Davion Mitchell take this shot, especially if I'm someone like me who doesn't really believe in the jumper that much as well. Like I'm not that big of a Davion believer as far as the jumper and whatnot. So like I'm living with this every single time. And I think that's all I have to say for the most part. I don't really have much to say here about Davion and the isolation scoring.
I mean, for me, this isn't the Kai defenses really poorly. I mean, Kai's very mobile, but he's also like an abjectly lost defender still. The technique is really bad. He's able to get misdirected, and Davion takes a statistically insignificant jumper where a defense never has to rotate. If you were to tell a team that your center switched onto a point guard and there were no additional rotations forced, that's a win every single time. It doesn't matter if he shoots 70% from there. So I mean, I think that like it doesn't matter how much space he created. None of these other defenders moved, and that's the bigger issue for me, is that there is not a chain of events that occurs when he attacks, and it even if he gets a lesser shot or has to work a little bit harder, this defense had a resting play because they just switched to a 1-5 pick and roll and as a attacking guard. Like that's a big problem.
Yeah, I guess in the Kings context, I really wanted to see him like shoot these kind of shots because in his likely lineups, like he's going to be with probably Halliburton and then two of the worst offensive players existing in the NBA, Mo Harkless and Alex Len. So I needed to show he can kind of be a release valve, especially because, like, as you say, I kind of see a Davion Halliburton fit as kind of potentially being a bit just not phenomenal because Tyrese is not a release valve. It was impressive how he handled his, how he gradually increased the pull-up volume he would take, but he's just not a release valve. He's like, so Buddy Hield, Harrison Barnes had to take a lot of kind of release valve shots because when they played with Halliburton in the offense. So yeah, I guess, could you pause it just for a second? I'll get back on track. But like that's, across Summer League, I thought Davion had a lot of moves where, like, that's a really simple move. It's just one cross and a pull up. But he had a lot of moves where he strung combos together and got a clean pull up off. It's interesting that people say they don't buy his pull up threat because I guess just like if he's going to play backup point in the league, I feel like you need to be able to at least like create a shot for yourself on an island at some point. When the shot clock's at 8 and, the Halliburton pick and roll hasn't worked. So, I thought that was a good thing. I think we kind of skipped over, I was talking over the clip where he was on Nick Richards, but that's kind of the extra level of complexity with his off the dribble stuff that I want to see. Like, it was a pullback or something, gets Nick Richards off balance and then, goes again, stop start sort of stuff. And that's, that's, I think, the complexity of moves I want to see from Davion. So, so next play. The first thing is he pushes the pace to Jar Ramsey, and I think in general, like, I was pretty impressed by the pace Davion played at. Push the pace. Buddy Hield. This is all Buddy Hield asks for a point guard. Just when he's wide open, not even that much open, but when he's there at the wing, just pass to him, he's going to shoot and make the three. So Buddy Hield's going to love that, and after that, it's just basic pick and roll. And against drop, the floater's there and he takes it. So this is something that ties into what I was saying about summer league competition. Like in the NBA, that's going to be a better drop big. That's going to be a better chasing defender than Book Knight. So is that just floater a viable solution? So I want to see him do a little bit more in pick and roll. So like this play is something I was pretty happy to see. Like kind of extra technique, just the jail and then the floater. I want to see him do more stuff like that. So this play shows off his limitations because of size. Like Kai just deflects the pass really. Like I like seeing him. I don't think it's the best defense from Richards, but I like seeing Davion, probe a little bit more against drop. Like, Hezi and get the drop big out of the space that they're comfortable in and see what you can open up from that. So the last two plays have been like stagger screens. And I think like that sort of stuff, like I don't think Davion right now can handle like legitimate standstill, flat pick and roll sort of stuff. But I think if you do add in some like stagger screens or, get some Chicago action happening, he can be effective there because, so basically what I guess a lot of people refer to as a second side attacker. I think Davion can be that. I guess the issue again with the Kings is next to Fox, that's something that's going to be really effective. But if you do that with Halliburton, like what's going to happen? Like, is there going to be shot clock violations or is the offense just going to get stalled and stuff? So, I kind of talked over two clips where he went against a trap. I think it was one play actually. Do you mind rewinding to the trap thing? I got a question for everyone else here. So against a trap, another thing that his vision kind of hurts him with is, I did not pick a great play because the pass wasn't even there, but he has missed a lot of reads against traps to the big, and he has the speed and I guess a good enough handle to be able to dribble out of it. But like in the summer league, but like, do you guys think that's something that's going to work in the NBA? Like when he gets trapped, just changing direction and trying to dribble out of it and then playing from there. Like I would probably assume not, but
I just don't think teams will trap him.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't think that his ball handling and like I think that teams are going to do the opposite where they just sag off and say like, I dare you to turn this corner or make enough jumpers off the dribble, and that's going to be
okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, fair enough.
But I mean, like, because you can't sag up. Like this coverage is going to be for Halliburton and Fox. I don't think that it will be something that teams are willing to risk Halliburton and Hield on the weak side, getting and one looks or one more looks, which is I would say the Kings' best general trait from last year was the ability to keep a ball moving when a defense is tilted in rotation. So
shout out Harrison Barnes.
Probably not do that against the lesser of the three.
But
creation guards for Sacramento.
Okay. Yeah, we'll keep rolling. Yeah. So this clip, he passes up the fairly open jumper against Buchner off the dribble, but I think that kind of more manifests how he was playing in a really like pass first, trying to be the floor general mindset in some league. The bigger concern I had with this play is he passes up the catch and shoot three against the Buchner closeout. Like it's not a lot of space, but I'm just wondering, is that partially a mentality, or is like I'm wondering if that could be maybe attributed to his mentality in summer league where he was playing that kind of floor general role, because he's going to need to take that shot in the NBA. Like for sure, especially again with that Kings bench unit, that's probably not going to generate a lot of advantages. Like he's going to, like Halliburton can create that shot for him. Like, so he needs to take it. So yeah, that's the clips.
Anybody want to jump in on that point?
Well, I think what he mentioned there at the end, what stands out to me is I just don't think he's ever really been a super comfortable off the catch shooter, especially on a standstill. I think his mechanics are definitely tailored to sort of those kind of pull-ups where he can stop his momentum and completely just rise up like that. I've always worried about that with Davion. One of the reasons I was lower on him is that I thought he was someone who operated best with the ball in his hands, but who I didn't think met the necessary thresholds to even be a really good bench ball handler. I've always thought that with Davion. I thought you would have to really teach him to play in a catch and shoot. And even then, he's 23. Is he worth those resources? There's stuff to like with Davion for sure. And at Summer League, there were definitely moments where he really stood out. But I've always thought that shot it's not like that 40% wasn't just aberrational because, of course, a 44% 3-point shot from a 60% free throw shooter, like historically 60% free throw shooters, just seems aberrational, but also because it was a heavy diet of pull-ups and he never looked comfortable shooting spot ups, especially like if he was hopping into it. He really likes to 1-2 into his shot, and I've never really bought him as a spot up shooter, I guess.
I agree. I've never really bought him as a spot up shooter either. And like I already mentioned, I don't really buy him as an overall shooter, to be honest. But I think you made a good point about the fact that is it worth it to give him those kind of looks and reps or whatever on ball, especially if you have a guy like De'Aaron Fox already in place and a guy like Tyrese Halliburton or whatever, who obviously isn't, he's not going to be your primary or whatever. But like, I feel as though like it would be very important, especially when they're running these lineups with all three of them out there, for Davion to be able to play as more of a tertiary player. And I'm not necessarily sure that he's capable of doing that. A question that I have that's a little bit more broad, it's not necessarily about Davion in particular. I guess it's more about the Kings. And I guess Davion fits into this because I'm just going to get to it. So with the 3-guard lineups, I'm a Magic fan, so we're going to be having a lot of those coming up soon. Like, what do you think the efficacy of 3-guard lineups are in major minutes? Because you've just invested a top 10 pick on Davion, or whichever pick he was, I forget. But you just invested top 10 pick on Davion. You just got Hallie, who looks great, and then you have De'Aaron Fox, who's your franchise player. So like, how comfortable do you feel rolling that out consistently, I'd say, especially with those three? Jasper or James, because he pays attention to the Kings a lot.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I think the main weakness defensively is like on the interior. Like if teams start to try to go like post up against a switch. So the way I would try and balance the 3 guards out is trying to go like 2 bigs alongside that, which is it's why I'm not a huge fan of Harrison Barnes in the current Kings context, because Harrison Barnes is phenomenal. Like, okay, he's not an all-star, but he's a really good player, and I think he's really underrated because the thing, like, he just turns half advantages into big advantages. So, like, it's not breaking someone down off a standstill, breaking someone down from a standstill, but the way he can change directions with the in motion and, you know, his footwork around the rim and then his manipulation as a passer, it's just, but anyway, yeah, so He's not a good rim protector anymore. It's long past the days where he had bounce. But the kind of lineup I'm thinking of for the 3-guard lineup is 3 guards and then like Holmes at center and Metu or Bagley at power forward. Like for Bagley and Metu, that's kind of theoretical because their weak side shot blocking isn't amazing, especially Bagley. That's probably one of his big weaknesses on defense. Like he can process the game, but he hasn't quite figured out the timing as a weak side shot blocker. But I just think offensively, it's interesting. Like, one thing I want to see more from De'Aaron Fox personally is what Russell Westbrook did in Houston, which is the go and catch or the catch and go or whatever you want to call that move, where it's like he has a ball handler that can draw a defender from the wing to the nail. And that gives him so much space to attack. And then if the defender recovers, he can just change direction because of his crossover. It's something only like a Westbrook or Fox could do at a really high level. So I think in that regard, like Davion on ball, as long as he can kind of draw like hedge coverages, I can see it working with Fox, obviously. But obviously, like the best thing about the Kings is you can just go shooters around Fox and he's going to get you great offense. So it's a very valid concern.
To answer your more theoretical questions, I would say that 3-guard lineups are possible if they're all different frames, they all have different games, and they all have strengths and weaknesses that are synergistic. And I do not think that this Kings group meets that threshold. Davion's defense is fantastic from a point of attack point when the player is not strong enough just to push him aside. And the problem is that that's basically the thing that they need. So I think that in theory 3-guard lineups work, and I think we'll get to this with the Magic eventually, is that like they also, it has to be a specific 3 guards, not just like 3 good guards. So I think that like if you're going to have a guy like, Fox, Halliburton, and Davion, you kind of need 3 different gradations of advantage creation. And for what the Kings need, Davion's advantage creation is not there. And he struggles to create a different brand of offense than those two, and sort of has I just don't think there's enough overlap with like how it works. Like he doesn't get to the free throw line enough. He struggles when he's there. The advantage creation is inconsistent. He has some issues with his handle. I think that it's going to be difficult to mix and match Davion with the other 2 given where the lineup is, and it might just be a deeper rebuild. But yeah, to answer your question, it's sort of fraught. Like you can run 3-guard lineups out. They just have to be a really specific 3 guards in relation to each other. Are we good to move on to our next player? All right, cool. Up next, I believe we have Franz. So let's jump into it.
I'm sorry. The thing that I saw, the things that I wanted to focus on for areas of attention were his comfortability with the 3-point volume, being able to anchor at the 5, which is something that I thought might be kind of interesting for our team specifically, because we're not really sure what's going to end up happening with Mo, because COVID, all the other stuff that's going on with him. We're not really too sure what's going to end up with him. Wendell looks good. And then you have Jonathan Isaac, which is a guy who I love. I think he should be able to play center long term, but it's the health that we're worried about with him. Do you really want to put that kind of stress on his body, his lower body, and all the other stuff? So I was just thinking, is there a iteration of Franz that can play the center position for 5-10 minutes a game? Because we know why that might work. It's because he's positionally awesome on defense. It's like he covers up holes for his teammates like all the time or whatever. The next thing I have is pathways to the finishing. One thing that I noticed, or not noticed, one thing that I heard a while ago when I was watching one of PD's streams actually it was pretty bad at Michigan at certain points in time. Best creation usage is another one, and risk aversion, because he is So Franz is the kind of player where he does everything. He plays things very safe. For example, let's just say, for example, I have a clip in here where he's guarding Evan Mobley. For example, a good example of him taking a risk is swiping down on the ball when Evan's coming up for the jumper. Or I'm thinking a little bit more risk aversion as far as his passing is concerned or whatever, because he makes very safe passes that they might not always be the best pass, because sometimes you can see, okay, you can, like, Franz has enough vision to make some of these passes that he just doesn't do because of his risk aversion. So I just kind of wanted to see how he leveraged that at the NBA level, and how pretty much that's just how he leveraged it moving forward, and that's just something that I wanted to monitor with him moving forward. So yeah.
I just like that Zay hit on risk aversion so much, because I think that's like the main thing with Franz. I mean, all 5 of those points could have been, and in some cases they sort of are, like how can we get him to do more things and take advantage of the clear tools and intelligence he has. So that's the same thing I was watching in Summer League, and so Zay hit on all those.
Slightly.
Just tell me the point where you want to pause specifically.
Like around right here, actually. You can see that, I don't know what like Franz feasted against Mobley in this game on cuts or whatever. I don't know if it's because Mobley, he has these rim protector instincts or whatever, where he just feels like he has to focus on the actions that are happening in front of him instead of like his man. But Franz just like kind of attacked him the entire game. Because you can see, like, as soon as he takes that step up towards Cole, Franz, well, you can't really see it on this point of the screen, but you can see it in other plays where you can see the recognition, like, hey, I can cut here, and that's an easy bucket. So that's something that surprised me a little bit. I didn't know he was this good of a cutter. He was very good in Summer League as a cutter, but the other stuff left me wanting a little bit more. But you can continue this play here.
Okay.
I think that's how it plays out. Back cuts Evan, yeah. And this one,
everything's twice as always.
Okay.
Sometimes I'm going to slow down the first one just because I was in a little bit of a fever dream of editing. You know how it goes.
Whatever, that's just the physicality or whatever. But on these screens, like, he's not very physical with them. He doesn't create enough contact for me on these screens or whatever. So that was just something that's not in the notes. So that's something I kind of wanted to bring up because I saw it it reminded me of that in the previous clip when I saw him saying screen for Cole.
Yep, there's that screen that he just doesn't make
there's
contact.
we all know what we're getting with Franz here. It's just like you can see the hesitancy in shooting, and a little bit later when he doesn't hesitate, the jumper looks picture perfect pretty much. It looks great. But when he hesitates for whatever reason, it's just sort of like he just doesn't make them when he hesitates or whatever. So I don't know if that's a concentration thing or whatever. It's just like a confidence or what, but he just has to. I mean, I think we all already knew this. Franz just needs to become more confident and stop overthinking. Really see how something that's this deeply wired into him, like, works itself out without like constant drilling of it within him. Just like, hey, dude, or that's the coach Mosley. Like, hey, man, you got to take X amount of game, or if you don't take this, you're sitting down next to me. That was this play here. This is him attacking a closeout against Mobley. It's like the thing with this play was it's another hesitancy sort of thing, because you can see right about, I'll tell you when to pause in a second. You can see it right about here. No, just slightly more. Okay, you can see like right here, you can see that Evan is in the paint pretty much. Like he's he's one step outside the paint. Like this is an easy jumper, especially for someone with Franz's shooting capabilities. This is an easy jumper, but he hesitates here. Is that?
Just say pause instead of.
Say that again?
Just say pause instead of drawing it out.
Oh, my fault. Yeah, you're right.
No worries. I just that, there's a disconnect. So by the time that you say here, it's already played by.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that makes sense. He gets put here into I believe this is the clip. I'm reading the note for this specific one because I think I had something. All moves into a good shot because of the advantage that he created. But I feel as though this is something that goes back to the risk aversion. I'm not sure if he saw it, but I would have preferred if he just got that to Timma on the, the right wing. initially instead of giving it to Cole, but Cole was the safer pass. I'm not sure if you saw it, like I said, but this is something that I noticed about him, the risk aversion with the passing. So that was just sort of a point. Here, that's the example I had where he doesn't hesitate, and it looks like that. That's all I pretty much had to say there.
Yeah, I mean it's really difficult to get people to rewire how open they perceive themselves to be. Like it's not just like shoot more; it's also like, hey, you're open right now. Should I shoot it, and how quickly? Like even this catch could have got out faster. You can see that he scans before he catches it. So like that's extremely tough to like get out. Just to be like, if it touches your hands and there's not a person who can physically block it, like just shoot the dang thing.
Put it up, right?
It sounds that simple, but in practice it rarely is. I'm gonna cut this back so you can talk through the up and under.
Right about, I mean, in this clip, one thing that I noticed was obviously it was a pretty good finish or whatever, but it's like he never considered, like, I think a lot of his stuff is predetermined. Like, it's like he never considered really taking that jumper at the top of the key. It was just like he was going to attack pretty much regardless. And that's something I noticed a lot with him in Summer League, where it was just like he was predetermined that he was going to attack these closeouts no matter what, even if they aren't necessarily strong. That was a nice finish or whatever. But I just didn't really like the process of that, really. I'm not sure what anyone else has to say about that play. That was one I was kind of unsure.
Ignacio, thoughts as the resident international expert on the processing here?
Let me see the play again.
Yeah, I'll run it back to the original in full speed, and then you can have the.
That was a nice finish. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. I think it was a nice finish. I think he does kind of a slight fake to get the dump off pass to number 53, and that gets the defender a bit of balance. And like, love the use of a slight pump fake to get to the rim. I do think it's a premeditated decision to get to the rim, but I mean, it went in, and he did a good use of the possibilities. Gets a pump fake, gets the defender off balance, and then when he's on the move, he's able to use also that gravity to get the other defender at the rim off balance and create space at the rim.
Ignacio, I have a couple questions for you a little bit later in the details section about pass Franz.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions for everybody, so maybe we can get them out. Yeah.
We can get to that in discussion. Zay, you want to finish this out?
Okay, yeah. In this play here, I forget what happens exactly right here. Oh, this is another one of those plays with Franz that showcases his cutting, where he didn't necessarily get the ball there. Jalen didn't hit him, but you can see it once again. You can see the recognition at a certain point where he realizes that Evan just really isn't paying that much attention to him. So then you can see the point of recognition when he cuts or whatever. It was kind of crazy to me watching him. I don't know. I just did not think he was this level of cutter. He was very good in Summer League. This is just another example of that. If he would have cut a little bit harder, maybe Jalen would have hit him. He would have had a left-handed layup or something like that. But that was just the cutting instincts is something that I kind of wanted to point out there. They got the board too. If we can run that back one more time, I believe there was one more thing that I had to say after he got the rebound. Right here. Is this the play I was thinking of? Yeah, there's a thing again with the risks again. Like I think it would have been difficult, but I feel like he could have got that into Suggs if he really wanted to. But that's once again, it was a risk or whatever. So I don't think he really took it, and that's fine. Like something like that is fine. But I just think, like I was watching this game, I was just noting down every single, I guess, part of this game that was risk management at all. So that was just something that I kind of saw there too. What's this?
We use feel as a really broad spectrum term when it's really specific. And there are just some situations where he's extremely low feel. And it's situations where like the jumper's not super clean, but like he could get it off because he has a high release point and it comes out of his hands quickly. And in those situations, like those are his worst moments. So I think that like examining his trying to get him as many of those moments with weird closeouts as possible is going to be essential to like smoothing that small deficiency read that leads to a dead possession.
And one more thing about that possession in particular, when he attacked the closeout, I felt like if he would have gotten into Evan's ribs or, you know, to bump him off, he would have had a better angle for the finishing. So that goes back to that point I had in the beginning about him creating better finishing angles than he did in college.
I got a question. So, like, do you think it's a promising thing that Franz can beat Mobley's hip consistently on even like softer closeouts?
Yes, actually. I'm sorry.
Because so because obviously that was he probably should have taken the shot there, but just that ability, like the footwork's good, as Ignacio said earlier, like he uses a little fake and stuff, like just I feel like the amount of guys who can beat Mobley's hip off that closeout isn't actually that large. So just seeing that, I'm personally a bit encouraged, even though, like, obviously the broader issue is not taking the shot there.
Yeah, that was actually in my notes watching this game. The fact that there was a couple times this game where he kind of just got by Mobley, and that was something that I wasn't expecting from him. Like the footwork, like you said, and all that other stuff was fine. It was just the fact that I would prefer him to have taken that shot. But I was very impressed with his ability. Like a couple of times he just got by Mobley in this game. And, you know, Mobley is an outlier big athlete, especially Mobley. So, yeah. We can start this play. Oh, this is another risk management thing where I brought it up earlier with him swiping down on the ball. That's something that he didn't really do that much in college. He would either like wall up or something like that, but I like that he took the swipe down and got that from Evan. Created an event, I should say.
Has it really well. Waits for the exact moment the ball's exposed.
This game, Evan was pretty ridiculous as a shot maker. It was kind of crazy.
You can tell he's so frustrated, though. Like these moments where it looks like he's not paying attention, it's because he's trying to do too much, and you can just see the frustration of being like, "No, just do your job." Like just 1.5 seconds on the clock when he catches the ball. Not a deal.
I believe it was 1.5. I think that was the exact number. Where with this possession in particular, let me check notes. I had something specific to say about this one. This is when he attacked Okoro one-on-one, and I like that Franz tried to carve out space with his strength once Okoro kind of like walled him off in the paint area. I like that he tried to do that. The problem is that it's Isaac Okoro, and that's just not the kind of guy that Franz isn't moving Isaac Okoro. So like, but I just like the fact that he attempted it. I like the process there. Something that I kind of want to never mind, I'll ask later.
Yeah, again, I'm a big fan of that play. Like at his size, like if he can get the footwork perfect on closeouts, like he's gonna get by people quite frequently. I'm just wondering there, like can he add like after the first dribble with the right, can he add a spin move or something? And rather than try and is that a Villanova post-up example, PD? But
sort of.
Instead of
to me, this is just that he was always going to take this shot. He decided after the first dribble that this was the shot he was going to take, and I think that he very much picks his moments where he's like, "I'm going to do this move now." And I don't think that this spin is particularly well advised because Mobley is going to rip it.
Fair enough. Yeah.
Like, I guess another defender, but like clearly he's had some issues with the perception of Mobley's length and his ability to just like phantom into place where he just like normal humans wouldn't be on an NBA court. So like for that reason, I understand it's been moved, but like just having to recognize that like defenders are not fully committed. Like, we still have, these are ands, so they're defending the man and the ball. He's not forcing any decisions. Like, this is an overall win for the defense. It's obviously good for him, but like, this is a, you know, even his positives still come with the caveats of like, you're still getting one-on-one mid-post fadeaways, which is a win for any defense.
I believe this is the play where Franz gets. Let's see. Oh no, this is the play where he got the big time dunk or whatever. I didn't really have much to say. It was just another recognition play where he's just like, hey, as soon as RJ, I forgot what RJ did. As soon as the defender turned his head to look at RJ for more than a second, Franz was like, okay, this is an easy cut, and then he gets the dunk. You could see the defender like readjusted once he realized like, I messed up. But you see how he scoots over, but it's too late here.
Yep.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. Franz just had pretty good. He has pretty good at I had a specific thing that I called it in my notes, but I don't really have time to look at it right now. But he does a pretty good job of, I guess, filling space. If that makes sense. Yeah. This was the play that I have in my notes that says that he got a screen / an advantage on a Koro, and then he jabbed at Cavangeli to get him interested, to engage him, but he fails to engage him enough to get two. And then the second pullback dribble kind of killed the advantage for them. That was something I just kind of want him to be more patient and put more pressure on Cavangeli in that play.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is an almost shining moment. It's just, you know, there's another layer of personal creation that's necessary. All right, so let's get this conversation going. I feel like let's throw it to Ignacio on the youth Franz to now Franz developmental pathway, developmental curve, and his extremely strange journey through reputations of Prospect Head.
Yeah, to me, like, the first question I have is more of a developmental question than a Franz specific question, but it comes from something that came up in the chat while Say was, you know, doing the presentation, which is, so Franz was 6'1" at 15 years old, and he was 6'6", listed at 6'6" right before going to his first season at Michigan in 2019, and now he's 6'9" barefoot. So it's clearly that he had a late growth spurt and a massive growth spurt. And he was, to me, and I described him back then in late 2018 as one of the best shooters in the 2001 international class. And I don't think he ever got, at least in a matter of results, he never got to that elite shooting level at Michigan. Are you guys concerned, or would you guys be concerned about a player hitting a late growth spurt and that messing with the mechanics and messing with the shot balance? And how would you address it? Is it a matter of repetition, of enough in-game reps, which is like a possibility, sending him to the G League and making, you know, a 10 3-pointers a game, and, you know, let him miss enough to a point where he's able to get a decent shot? Or I don't know. How would you address a player hitting a late growth spurt in terms of shooting mechanics, and how concerned would you be?
I think, and this isn't necessarily for everyone, but like for Franz specifically, like I think he needs to be put in situations where he doesn't really have a decision to make. He has to shoot the ball, whether that be even like he doesn't quite have the mechanics for it, but if you have to like try and weaponize him as a movement shooter, even in the G League or even in the NBA, the Magic want to be bad anyways. Even if he's only going to shoot like 28%, like just get him at spots where he's comfortable, like shooting over contested. He doesn't get a choice to not do it. He doesn't get the choice to put it on the ground, drive, lose the advantage, or whatever that may be. And that's sort of tough. And that was kind of my question was, do you think to develop him as a shooter, you have to sacrifice his other kind of developmental pathways using his feel and size as a passer? Because a part of me worries that's going to be a really hard balance for him. But it just sort of depends. But if I was really wanting to develop him as a shooter, I would just try and take that decision out of his hands and say, you have to shoot this on this play. This play is only for you to shoot. You can't pass. If you don't do anything, there's no possession. So that's what I would try and do.
I would push back on the idea of making him a catch and shoot only guy, because not everybody is wired resiliently to handle that. Like, not everybody can bounce back from shooting 26% from three on like heavy movement volume, and there is certainly if for whatever reason Bones Highland had like an issue with the reading a moment and shooting, like he is clearly wired to handle a million misses. I don't necessarily see that for Franz. I think that this is an important point when talking about just like the nature of people. So like this is a lot of what interviews are for, is just to see if guys are, what their particular developmental environment is. Some guys want to be put in the G League and just murder. Feel the experience of getting 30 and be like, okay, now I can apply this in an NBA game. Other guys don't want to go to the G League. They need to go at the big show, and they're willing to deal with shooting 15% from three against NBA competition, because that's just how they're wired. Some guys, it doesn't matter. So I think that like there isn't a particular pathway for even guys with this particular hang up, because so much of it depends on how they respond to the particularities of adversity. Sorry if that's a long-winded answer.
No, that was great.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah. Something that I wanted to mention that I heard on a podcast, going off of Bryce's point of getting him to be more of a movement shooter and him not being, you saying that he's not really capable of doing it, at least not right now because of the form and stuff. It might be kind of different because of what Ignacio said. He did grow, so things might be a little bit different now than it was back then. But at junior levels, he did do a lot of movement stuff, and I believe in his his freshman year at Michigan as well, he did a good amount. I'm not saying he did anything crazy, but he did a good amount of it at previous levels, I should say. So I think that's something that was interesting when we drafted Franz as well, that I feel like he might have some latent versatility as a shooter that we might not have seen in his senior year. I mean, not senior year, his last year at Michigan.
I want to double back to Ignacio's question that I feel like I didn't answer properly, and that's about handling late growth spurts. And the answer is like proprioception is a really hard thing to nail down. Like relearning proprioception and performing at an NBA level is really difficult. It is so hard. Like, I mean, anyone who's been through a growth spurt and then met the challenge of stairs is familiar with how embarrassing that relationship could be. Now imagine doing it at an NBA. Now imagine growing while playing at a college or NBA level. I think that it just takes time to refamiliarize with the body that you have. And almost everybody struggles through their growth spurts. Very rarely, like maybe some post players where like they do in high school or in college, where if they're like particularly big and there's not like the type of guy who gives them issues. But if you're doing a more coordination heavy skill and you don't have proprioception, like it's going to go a little janky. So I think that it's definitely a concern. I think that it leads back to the point I guess I was long-windedly trying to make, is that if a guy has a late growth spurt, I really want to know how he's wired in regards to handling setbacks, so that way I can build the best developmental pathway for him, and make sure that his, that like the context of being like, this is not a situation you're expected to succeed in, is a thing that benefits him long-term, versus, some guys hit these growth spurts, struggle, they're wired a certain way, their situation treats them another way, and then they kind of flame out, and we're left looking, at what happened. And the answer is like, well, they didn't KYP. Like, they didn't know their personnel, they didn't know how they were. So that would be my longer answer. I think that there's not a great response to what it is with him, because I just don't have that intel. But I think that those are two really important pieces: is wiring and understanding the specifics of a struggle.
Yeah, I want to, before we close, I want to circle back to Bryce's point about, him, just preparing him to be a catch and shoot guy could, um, like put on hold the development in other areas. But to me, I think it's obviously, as usual, it's all connected. But I just don't know how, if he doesn't develop as a catch and shoot guy, I don't know how he draws those closeouts that he can exploit and attack and create advantages and pass out of them. So to me, considering Franz's current abilities, I would say that it starts with developing a shot that is a credible threat to other teams, to them have to go out and like aggressively guard that skill, and then create the advantages to drive, get to the rim, make the pass on the move if he stops making premeditated reads, and all that sort of stuff. So that's why I think we put so much emphasis on shooting, I guess.
Yeah, I would rebut by saying, like, again, like those closeouts by Mobley, they weren't hard closeouts. It's just the act of closing out without getting beaten is extremely difficult. Like Mobley's also skinny, and that probably plays a part in the closeouts not being fantastic. But if you have good footwork, if you have good footwork, and you're that big, like it's a little bit different. But watching guys like Jalen Green, Lonnie Walker, Norman Powell, those kind of hyper athlete two guards, like they can often get advantages attacking off the catch, or like Westbrook even, like attacking off the catch without even drawing a hard closeout. They can still beat the hit. And I feel like Franz, based on those clips, he might be able to do that. Like I've seen like Hayward do that as well. Like, and he's not athletic by any means, but he's just big and he has all the details down on the like attacking off the catch stuff. So yeah, like and then I'd also like to say, like, yeah, I agree with Zay. Like maybe he might need to play G League year one, because the thing I was really scared about with the Magic is I feel like they're already gonna have to give guys like at least Cole Anthony a lot of like bad reps, because the offense just doesn't seem like it's wild to create like really big advantages. So I was pretty scared of drafting Scotty Barnes and Giddey as well for me, just because of this reason. Like I'm wondering, like a team that doesn't seem to have a major advantage creator, if you add more guys who might pass up shots to that, it just leads to a build up of either bad reps, like, for J.I., Cole, Chuma, RJ, or it just leads to a lot of shot clock violations. So, yeah.
Any final thoughts?
I think I have one more thing to say at the bottom. I'm going to give a shout out real quick. Shout out to Ramanoy too, because he pointed this out to me. And when I rewatched this game, I saw it a little bit more, and a couple of other Summer League games. It's like it doesn't seem like Franz really prepares that much to shoot either. It's like his shot preparation isn't, or at least in the Summer League, it wasn't very good. It seems like he was kind of upright for the most part, and it's like he clearly doesn't have that preference to shoot. So that was something that I think people are going to key in on later. Defenders, the more they play him and all other stuff, that's like, okay, this dude isn't even preparing to shoot. Like, he doesn't even look like he wants to shoot. It's sort of like when you see those guys who get the ball and they don't even look at the rim. I mean, situationally, that's fine. But, like, you guys know what I'm talking about, where they might not even look at the rim or even try to score, so people aren't going to defend them like a threat to score. So I think that might be something for Franz moving forward. Like, he might just, like, he has to get that shot prep together to where people are, like, he doesn't, I don't know how to put this, I guess look like a shooter, if that makes any sense. If you can look like a shooter, you might get shooter closeouts and all the other stuff until he does build that confidence to then be able to take those jumpers, which might help with what James was saying, him being able to attack closeouts or whatnot.
Okay. Good Franz discussion. Last up, we have Kessler Edwards. So
sorry.
Tell me about the 5 areas that you're paying attention to for Kessler Edwards and his somewhat strange summer league from a contracts and playing time perspective.
Yeah, Kessler was a really weird summer league, and it was a fun one to watch for me because I was such a Kessler fan. He's sort of the like hyper realized version of those guys I was talking about at the very beginning of the stream when I was saying like I watch for like the Paul Whites and the Jarrell Brantleys, where it's like these off-ball players who don't have much, if any, on-ball equity. They tend to, they don't get the big numbers at summer league, but they have you have to watch for the other kind of little things when they're playing off ball. So the big one for me was I want to see like, is there any potential for him to become a connector rather than just like a catch and shoot player? I'm not a fan of like the 3-and-D term, but there's definitely a difference between like a 3-and-D player and a connector. And I think the passing is big, like just like +1 passes. Or even like if he does drive or off a cut, like can he make that extra pass to get it to the ball where it needs to be, as well as the off-ball movement. Summer League doesn't have a ton of schemed off-ball movement, so it's really all about how he, his court mapping and how he can sort of attack the open spaces. His strength and switchability, and that goes with the POA, the point of attack hit flexibility too. Both those are sort of like, how switchable is he? Is he sort of a 2-3 defender? Can he be a 2 through 4, even maybe some small 5s defender? Sort of watching for stuff like that. Is there any on-ball juice at all on offense? Can he run the occasional second side pick and roll, even if just to get like a pull-up midi, with 4 seconds left on the shot clock? Is there anything there, or is he a completely, Reggie Bullock-esque, only exist off-ball type player? And then the shot versatility versus NBA closeouts. Obviously, Summer League, there's a lot of off-balanced closeouts and a lot of undisciplined defense, but the athleticism isn't super far off from the NBA level. So I want to see, everyone talked about sort of the funky shot, but how the numbers were all there. How does that look against an NBA closeout, trying to get off over an NBA defender, off of hard movement, stuff like that. So those are sort of the main things I was looking for.
Yeah, you're preaching to the choir here. I think another thing with guys like Kessler is like, he has a game that is probably one of the least suited to Summer League. Like, he is a person who thrives on the intricacies of the systems of basketball interacting, like understanding how a team wants to have their Iverson and just slightly bumping them off the angle, and like in a more loose setting, those things just either aren't valuable or like don't really connect to the to the game that's on the floor. And I think that unless like he just knocked down every single jumper in the world, there wasn't really a chance where like Kessler was going to play great, if that makes sense. Like, it's just not the best version of him doesn't exist on this floor. And I was really excited to see how, like, knowing that he was going to have some level of issues, I was excited to see how he progressed. Is that a fair read of how you felt about it going in?
Yeah, absolutely. Your breakdown on him was excellent, and no matter what happened at Summer League, it wasn't going to change my priors. But Summer League is sort of a test for how can this guy, like, are there extra developmental pathways we don't necessarily see right now, or he didn't have access to, whether it be the college system or college spacing, whatever it may be. So I was sort of trying to look and see, like, is there any extra little bit there that he can really expand upon and become even better. Specifically offensively was more where I was watching, but even defensively, he's mostly sort of, I feel like his best role was sort of as an off-ball havoc wreaker or havoc creator, I guess is probably the better term. But like, is there like very good on-ball equity there, or is it more of a, like where's the developmental pathway for his on-ball defense against these, sometimes NBA athletes, sometimes NBA ball handlers, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always really interesting with guys who are good at like the finer points of basketball, just putting them in situations where they're going to be tremendously uncomfortable. and being like, okay, figure it out. Like, yeah, the things you normally do like kind of aren't available here. Like, there's not at Summer League. There's broadly not as much plaudits for like executing an inch perfect bump on a cutter and then sprinting it to a closeout. It just like doesn't really win you games. So I was trying to see like how comfortable he would look in a situation where like that stuff kind of off the table. What else can you bring? And that's where points 1 and 4 become so interesting. All right, let's dive into this.
Yep. So this first play is a bit of sort of what I was talking about with the court mapping I want to see. I like how this is sort of a weirdly run like Karl Malone pick and roll almost, but I like how he sees that cut there. He fills the space, brings the defender down. So Zagorowski would have had the open shot there that they didn't take, but he definitely created it. Here's an on-ball touch that looks really bad. Corey Kispert is not the most fluid lateral mover, and it's a little bit like you just want to see him try and get a step and get downhill and create something. He sort of did the turn post up type thing that wasn't great. So I was sort of hoping for more there, and that was one of 2 on-ball touches he got in this whole game. He had pretty awful. He had pretty low usage in Summer League. Cam Thomas took the majority of it, but I do like how he recovers here defensively. That's one of those little things that sometimes can show up in Summer League, is like how a guy takes sort of a lost possession and turns it into what they can do defensively. He had to guard. I chose this game because he had to guard Corey Kispert, who's like the wing shot maker, excuse me, and Mason Jones, who's like a guard, ultra crafty shot creator. Those were his 2 primary assignments. So I thought it was a really interesting test for him defensively to have to switch between the 2, and as well as sort of where he was getting guarded by each of them. So you can see here he picks up Mason Jones pretty well and gets a solid contest on this Harden-esque step back. So I like that play. But yeah, it's just like little things. He didn't get a lot of usage. So I wanted to see him take a bit more advantage of the usage he got, but little things right there are sort of what he flashed in college. It shows up as a block in the stat page, and that's always helpful. But even if it didn't, you sort of like how he helps here and how he picks up the ball specifically. He does these little things so well on defense that you don't always get to see at Summer League, but he really impressed me still defensively off ball, because he just does so many things. He consistently finds a way to be in the right place, even when he's not reading a scheme, which is a little extra hard. So he really impressed me in that way. This was probably the best game of that, but even in the other games, he still looked pretty solid there. And that was one of the better closeouts I saw in all of Summer League. So
especially that second effort back, is really impressive. And also like it's just like in Summer League, you just don't have that much of a secondary scheme. So like if you miss a closeout, it can be just like curtains for a possession. And his ability to just like keep fighting, and then this closeout right here, where he's able to, he has an effort, he's able to stunt, and then still stick with, probably one of the best catch and shoot guys that we've had come into the league in a minute. Like the level of awareness, knowing that there's not a safety net behind you of a scheme, or even like people who know how to execute the scheme, is really impressive. And it's so different than what we've seen for a lot of Summer League, because like most of the guys who would say like play well or that we generally get to watch are more on-ball guys, or guys who sort of do definite skills well.
Yeah, I think that's what's really impressive to me, was that even without a scheme, he still executes the scheme perfectly.
Yeah.
That sort of says something about the level of defender he can be. On this play here, this is a bit of a flash play, and I like to see the athleticism too. So it's Cam Thomas had quite a few of these, both at LSU and in Summer League, where he kind of drove into a wall and the defense could completely collapse on him. But I like Kessler's hustle there, kind of got away with a foul. But I like the hustle, and then I really like how he fills space here in transition. You didn't get to see it there at the end, but he filled all the way to the rim, and Cam Thomas didn't hit him, but there was a lot there to like. So I really enjoyed just he still kind of brought that hustle, even though he had, I think it was a 12% usage, and he still made plays defensively. He's very fast in the open court. I think that's something that stands out specifically among his summer league peers, is that he's a pretty solid athlete. Specifically when he gets some movement, you can see here he doesn't get super vertical off sort of a standstill, but it's not awful verticality. And then I just like how fast he runs the floor, and he fills the space well as Cam kind of draws J Huff in there. So this is sort of an example of the limitations a player like Kessler has in Summer League. That does end up being a bucket. I want to say, I can't remember exactly who that was that finished that. Former Heat player Chris Silva, I think. But he's right there open in the corner on this, a full slide and help. And he still gets this bucket, so it's fine. But sometimes you'd like to see that pass out to the corner. Can he whip it around? Just a small example of like players like Kessler don't always get the touches they might get in the NBA. Some passers there in the short roll are going to get that to him really quickly. So players like Kessler have that issue being purely off ball. But this is my favorite possession of the whole game. He just really hound. I can't think of who that is there, but he looked really good, just on ball defense. Is that who he was guarding?
Yeah,
here
14.
Off the rip at 10. I don't know who that is, but yeah, I like this here as he just stays with, and again, no scheme, but kind of executing the scheme, forcing him down into the big. He gets a solid. I wish he would have digged a little harder. I don't know exactly how great the shooter is, 10. But I wish he would have kind of, I guess dug is the term. I wish he would have dug a little harder, but this is also a pretty solid play here. You get to see the vertical athleticism really pop. That's a really fun dunk. He gets by Corey Kispert with a solid move. And I think part of what I like here is, unlike, Franz Wagner, which we talked about a lot, like, I think he considers shooting this, but he knows the closeout from Kispert's going to be hard. So he just puts it on the ground, and, he happens to get all the way to the rim there and throw it down. But even if he didn't, he might have opened up some passing lanes. So I like to see that sort of secondary attack off a hard closeout, especially recognizing when you're the more athletic player there, because Corey Kispert was never, ever going to be able to recover. As soon as he's in that position, Kessler knows. So I like that decisiveness to get by and sort of create something. Maybe if Isaiah Todd digs down harder, if he could make that pass out to Kaiser Gates at the weak side wing, like if he had that in his game, that would be nice. But he recognizes where the advantage is, and he takes advantage of it with a huge poster. So that was one of his better offensive possessions. Especially because that's something I think you'll see from him in the NBA, is that he's going to get these catch and shoot opportunities. If he's the shooter, he has the track record of being, a pretty elite shooter. He's going to get these hard closeouts, being able to attack him hard baseline. That's just a really valuable skill. And then, you could sort of add the +1 passing on top of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that a difference between him and Franz is that, like, I shouldn't even compare this to Franz. A difference between somebody like Kessler, who is who makes the right decision but isn't necessarily what we would call like somebody who like suffers from academy brain, is that like when randomness occurs, guys who are more wired like team based will default to like pull it out, let's make a good decision. I think the reason Kessler does not shoot this ball is because he fumbles it. Like you can see he doesn't get a clean catch, and instead of defaulting to like, okay, let's pull it out, let's make a safe decision, he's like, okay, well, Kispert is off balance, so I'm gonna go try to put it down. And I think that's, if there had been that kind of processing from Franz, I feel like there would have been a lot more optimism. Obviously, they're different ages, but it's an interesting to see two guys who kind of have similar reps handle randomness differently.
Yeah, for sure. And this is a little flash of the athleticism. He bites really hard on this Isaiah Todd pump fake. You sort of hope that long term he kind of stays down, but I mean the recovery here, Isaiah Todd is not a bad athlete, not a bad finisher by any means, and to get there and beat him to that spot and then block the shot, it's really impressive. And even if he didn't block this shot, that's something I like to say with a lot of these flash plays, is like even if he didn't get the block there, that's a pretty good and it probably would have affected the shot quite a bit. He's helped out a little bit here by Raekwon Gray in the post, but I think this sort of shows. I thought he was the best defensive mover in the class in general at the wing in terms of ground coverage. He's very fast, and he usually has pretty good closeouts. He has really solid footwork. So I think this is sort of an example of that ends in the best way it possibly could. But even if he didn't, this is a positive recovery off of a mistake he made.
Also, shout out the vet maneuver of lightly pulling somebody when they get past you. Right where I paused it, you can see he just gives a little bit of a tug. Doesn't have that much of an impact on Todd, but it clearly alters his balance, and that balance turns out to be refs generally don't call that foul, and that's just a multi-year college guy, understanding that they're not gonna call that, and then it gives you just enough time, maybe knocks him off balance, but you clean it on the other side. Veteran.
I wish I could have mastered that in AAU. It would have looked a lot better. But yeah, no, I think Kessler has a lot of those moments, and you can really find him if you dig through his Pepperdine tape of it's just he covers ground so incredibly well. Even when he makes mistakes, he can cover for them. And I can't remember if I saw an exact wingspan measurement, but it sure looks like he has long arms, and whatever length he has, he uses super well. You saw that on that closeout on Corey Kispert earlier. He just he got a hand up in the right place on sort of the second recovery as well. Mm-hmm. So this here is just a bit of kind of being in the right place, but just a little touch shot like that from probably 8 feet or so is just really nice to see. Little things you hope he can add to his game. I thought he's always actually had kind of solid touch as a finisher, even though he doesn't have some crazy finishing package. He finishes pretty intelligently, and I like here, he sort of cuts into the lane. Davion Sharp fills, but he's quick to recognize where the ball is going. He's a pretty solid court mapper for this. Known to be off-ball player who isn't, we think of court mapping lots of times in terms of passers, I think. And he's not really a passer because he doesn't have a lot of on-ball reps to be a great passer, but he is a very good court mapper on both ends. Here we get an example of the shot. He didn't take a lot here, but it's not an awful contest there from Mason Jones, and he shoots it comfortably. You broke it down pretty well. He has that weird lean, but I really do buy this shot long term.
Mathematically, I just don't think you can. Mathematically, I don't think you can doubt his jumper. I get the concerns about how it looks, but I think this is just gonna be one of those you have to chalk up. You might wince a little bit, but the numbers. Considering the fact that he doesn't take his most dangerous type of shots, which are going to his left with momentum, it's going to work. And it's not that he certainly gets it off quick enough. I mean, this thing touches his hands and it's basically out.
Yeah, I mean, and this is an important note. He is moving right.
Yeah.
He was not moving to his left. He knows. I think it's one of those things. It's probably more instinctual than he's watched tape and knows he can't go left. It's one of those I was a shooter and I knew I can't shoot with movement to the left. So it's probably just instinctual, but he does know he doesn't ever shoot going left really. He doesn't have that in his bag, and I think if you have a good coach who can get him those shots in the right places. So this is a defensive possession that Mason Jones ultimately wins with the shot, but I thought this was really solid defense from him. Because he gets switched on here. He's guarding Isaiah Todd. He has to switch on to Mason Jones, and Mason Jones is known for being super crafty, not incredibly bursty, but he sticks with him on the pullback. And this is a shot you'll live with. No rotation is forced. He gets a solid contest. Mason Jones just makes shots sometimes. He's a very good shot maker. But I really like that defensive possession on. Someone, I think he dropped 24 in an NBA game. Maybe it's not the greatest sample, but someone who has shown he can exist on an NBA floor. And here's another block. I think he had 4 blocks in this game. That one on Jordan Goodwin, he gets vertical off a standstill, and that's something I really want to see more from him because he's not the greatest at that. But if he can somewhat be a verticality guy at the rim, that really helps his positionality. You know, you could put him out there right now. He's probably, you know, a 2-3, but if he could be vertical as sort of a secondary rim protector, you like him as potentially a 4 as well. And you know, the more versatility, the better when it comes to team building. So getting up off a standstill like that is a good sign. Jordan Goodwin's not a great athlete, but that's just a really good contest from him. And he got up pretty high. And again, he used that length really well, going straight up and bringing the arm down instead of trying to high point the shot. So that was probably Kessler's best game. So I might have cheated. He only played 4 games. One of them was really weird. He had to deal with like some weird contract stuff. He ended up getting a 2-way, which was really disappointing. Means my boy Zego's going unsigned. But I just really liked a lot of what I saw from Kessler. It's not super standout. It's not super flashy. And he doesn't, you know, he's never going to be like a superstar, all-star type player. But I think he showed a little bit of promise as maybe a bit more than just that 3-and-D in quotation marks, and the defense just looks really good. And you can imagine in like a solid scheme, you know, like what the Nets ran last year, he can be so impactful, whether it be on ball or off ball defensively, that I just think it's a really important type of player to have.
Absolutely. Any thoughts from the peanut gallery on Kessler's admittedly very odd summer league? All right. Well, I will say that I don't think that it is a knowing yourself thing on the shooting left. I think that he has like a movement disorder in his hip. So I think that it's not even like, if you notice, the blow by that he had was also going to his right. Like, I think that if you go through and find his most explosive moments, they're going to his right. You know, his ability to stay with Mrs. Jones, he's sliding to his right. I think that it's an issue with his hip that has to just be sorted out by physical therapy and development. And it's certainly something that I would love to see, just like, I mean, obviously in a perfect world where we know everything, just seeing the month by month dailies, like the, you know, just a section of his dailies of just shooting, going like extreme momentum going to his left. Because I just want to see what that looks like, you know, the last day of Pepperdine, pre-draft, you know, the first bit of summer league. That would be a fascinating thing to possess, but unfortunately it's very much in the realm of the theoretical. So I think that we should all give our plugs, and then I'm gonna stick around and do like 10-15 minutes of Q&A. If anybody wants to stay, you're more than welcome. We ran really long. I was hoping for this to be like 80 and we ran 120, which is normal. You know, stuff happens. So yeah, everybody go around, hit your plugs. I'll catch a break to get some water. If you want to stick around, you're more than welcome. If not, just do a quick routine and get out of here. And I'll have this uploaded tonight. So whoever wants to go first, take the floor, give the full court press, and then we can head over to a little break.
Maybe we can go in the order that we did the stream, so no one talks over each other. So I'm gonna plug in my stuff first. I'm Ignacio Rissotto. You can find me on Twitter at airball, EYRE ball. I write for IDProspects whenever I can. If you are into international prospects that are 1, 2, 3 years down the pipeline, follow our Twitter account. We have an amazing team of international writers, probably way better than what I can be. So we retweet their stuff, and we are in the middle of FIBA season right now. Under 16 players that are going to be eligible in 2024, 2025. So if you're into that sort of stuff, be sure to check us out.
Duru is 2026, right?
Duru is 2026, exactly.
Every time that we're on, I have to bring him up at least once. That's just the rules. Knock it off.
Yeah,
it off on your bingo card. He absolutely baptized.
2 years up in age, playing 2 years up in age. Declan Duru from Germany, and he's a beast. Like he's
baptizing these poor children. All right. Next up, we have James.
I don't really do much. My handle's free Malik Monk, and you can follow me there if what I said today is sort of seems like something you'd be interested. I also kind of do a podcast on and off about the Hornets called Beyond the Hive. So if you want to check that out, please do that. Although the Terrorology extension might have took all the wind out of my sails and doing another episode of that. But yeah, thanks for having me on, PD.
I guess I'll go. I forgot the word we went in, but my name is Xavier Green. Like I said earlier, the plugs are my Twitter, which is notzay22, NOTZAY22, and I also do YouTube kind of inconsistently. I'm trying to work on that a little bit. At youtube.com. Well, you don't have to type in the whole URL. Just type in notzay, NOTZAY, and it should pop up. I just started actually doing work with Premium Hoops. If you guys don't know, guys like Evan Zoucha, Mark Schindler, etc. So like they do a lot of good work, and we're trying to get a lot of draft content out this year, whether that be pods, whether that be writing, video, anything. We're trying to get a lot more draft work out this cycle. So if you guys would give them a follow on Twitter, I'm tripping. Premium Hoops. If you follow them on Twitter, that'd be great.
Yeah.
Thanks for you too. Sorry.
I was very lucky to be on. Everyone here does great work. I'll second the follow at Preview Hoops. I don't work for them, but they do great stuff. I'm at Bryce Hendricks 14 on Twitter. No S like there is in my last name because I don't know why. I write for Roll Call Sports and the Detroit Bad Boys, and then I host the Upside Swings Draft podcast. So if you're interested in like draft podcast stuff year round, we're sort of in the doldrums of draft content right now, but we're still doing fun stuff there. So I'll probably stick around for the Q&A too if PD will have me. So this was a blast. I was very lucky to be on with such smart guys.
Thank you guys for putting in a good shift longer than I thought, but hey, what's some extra watch hours? Thank you to everybody who participated. Thank you to everybody who watched. If you are interested in my work, you can find it on Patreon, where all the work is free. I just started the 2022 cycle by doing a much needed catch up on, I think, every unique thing that I say that some people may not have been hip to if you weren't, around in the 2019 cycle or whatever. I forget that I had forgotten that not everybody was around for the great advantage creation debate of that draft cycle. You can follow me on Twitter on Above the Break 3. Subscriptions to the YouTube channel, watch hours, all that is greatly appreciated. And I'm also doing consulting and metric building with Cerebro Sports. And we have a lot of good products for teams and organizations. So that's always great. And I'm also doing an EYBL review there. All right, I am quite parched. I'm going to throw it to the 2003 draft, and I will see you guys on the other side.